For most of my childhood, decisions in our house were presented as facts rather than discussions. My brother's needs were facts. His tuition, his activities, his future. Everything else was flexible, including mine. At the time, I didn't recognize it as unfair. My mother didn't frame it that way. She used softer words: family responsibility, temporary sacrifice, helping your brother get ahead. The kind of language that makes resistance feel selfish. When I got accepted into college, she smiled politely, like someone acknowledging a pleasant distraction. A week later she sat across from me at the kitchen table and explained that things had changed. My brother had been accepted into a private program. It was expensive. Opportunities like that, she said, couldn't be wasted. Someone has to be practical. She told me, folding her hands calmly. You can always go back to school later. It didn't sound like a suggestion, so I nodded. For a while I believed what she said. I took a job, worked long shifts, and handed over most of what I earned. At home, things felt stable again. My brother's plans moved forward, and my mother looked relieved, like a problem had been solved. But the quiet resentment I tried to ignore didn't disappear. It turned into something else. A kind of private stubbornness. 6 months after I left school, I enrolled in night classes at a community college across town. I paid the tuition myself, one course at a time. The schedule was brutal: work all day, class at night, studying after midnight. I didn't tell my mother. Not because I wanted to deceive her. Mostly because I already knew what she would say. And I didn't have the energy to argue every week about whether my life was allowed to move forward. So the years split into two versions of me. At home, I was the dependable one. The extra paycheck. The quiet son who didn't cause problems. Outside the house, I was a student again. Nobody celebrated those small milestones. Passing exams, finishing semesters, eventually completing my degree. They happened quietly, like things that belonged only to me. Graduation itself felt strange. I walked across a stage in front of strangers who applauded politely. My phone stayed silent the entire day. But I didn't feel angry. Mostly I felt tired. And a little proud. The degree led to interviews. Interviews led to one offer. A small engineering firm downtown. Nothing glamorous, but stable work. Good salary. The kind of job that meant I could finally move out. I brought the offer letter home, planning to tell my mother that evening. She found it first. I knew something was wrong when I walked into the kitchen and saw the envelope open on the table. She was reading it slowly, her expression thoughtful. You never mentioned finishing school, she said. Her voice wasn't angry. If anything, it sounded analytical. I tried to explain the night classes, the years of work, how I didn't want to burden the family. She nodded while listening, but her attention kept drifting back to the salary printed on the page. Then she stood up and went to another room. When she came back, she carried a sheet of paper. This is something we should settle before you start working, she said. The paper was a contract, a simple agreement stating that 50% of my income would be transferred monthly to support my brother's continued education and living expenses. The wording was oddly formal, as if someone had tried to convert family obligation into a legal structure. She slid the document toward me with a pen. This keeps things fair, she said. Fair. The word sat between us like something fragile. I didn't react right away. I just stared at the paper, noticing how carefully the percentages had been calculated. While we sat there, my phone rang. It was the company's HR manager, confirming onboarding details. At one point she casually mentioned something that made my mother look up. We received a call earlier asking to discuss your compensation structure, the woman said. We explained we only negotiate directly with employees. I glanced at my mother. She looked briefly uncomfortable, like someone caught stepping into a room they weren't invited to. The call ended a minute later. For a long time, neither of us spoke. Then I picked up the contract again. Something about the moment felt strangely calm. Years earlier I might have argued, tried to explain why the request was unfair. But the paper had already said everything it needed to. It described a future where nothing had really changed. So I tore it in half. Not angrily. Just deliberately. My mother stared at the pieces in silence. "You're abandoning your family," she said quietly. I shook my head. "No," I replied. "I just stopped being the solution to every problem." The conversation didn't escalate. She seemed more confused than furious, as if my refusal didn't fit the version of me she had always relied on. I packed a small bag later that evening. Most of my belongings had never really mattered: clothes, books, a laptop, things that could fit into the back seat of a car. When I walked toward the door, the house felt strangely quiet. My mother didn't try to stop me. Maybe she thought I would come back. Maybe she believed independence was temporary, the same way my education had once been. Outside, the air felt unfamiliar. Freedom didn't feel triumphant, it felt uncertain. But for the first time in years, the next decision about my life belonged entirely to me.